Hello Reborners, my name is Karen and this is Making Reborn Dolls with Karen. I'm really excited today because I have a new baby on the table and it's one I've wanted to add to my own collection, but I didn't have a kit and I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get his kit because it just hasn't went on sale and I just can't pay 40 or more dollars for one kit. I just don't do that. But it's Gabriel. He's one of my favorite kits. I think he's very, very cute, and he has a lot of potential in his face. I've made quite a number of Gabriels. I've made him into a girl. I've made him into a boy. He looks good either way. So he's a very exciting kit for me. One thing I don't like about him is his limbs. So I traded his limbs. He's going to have Lalani's arms. They're full, and he's going to have Anna's legs. They're full as well. So he's going to be a full baby. He's a 20-inch kit, and these are both 20-inch dolls, so they should work just fine. He had little bitty short limbs because they were 3/4. I don't like the 3/4. Sometimes they're okay, but his were kind of stubby. I don't know. They look way too small to me for his body. But anyway, we're going to be making Gabriel, so stay with me for his journey and watch him come alive into a pretty little baby. I think he's going to be a very, very cute kit. And I want to say thank you to all my viewers who watch my videos. I want to send out a special thank you to the ones who actually like my videos and comment and stuff. It's very important to me. And we're going to start Gabriel now. He'll probably have 5 or 6 parts to his video. Each part will cover a certain percentage of his work. And he has already been pre-sealed, pre-washed and pre-sealed. He has a nice texture to him, so I can write on him with pencils. And we're going to be using pencils on Gabriel. We're going to be putting veins and creases with pencils. I don't really do very many capillaries. They just, I don't know, they just don't show or stand out or anything. But you can do those as well if you want to put the little capillaries. Some people put them on the hands, the wrists, the ankles, all kind of places on the doll. I just don't really do that. I really like creasing. It really can add a lot to your doll. But instead of creasing with paint, which is messy and runs and can be very, very, I don't know, block up the creases, make them gunky and dirty looking, I use a pencil. And the pencil I chose is Henna. That's the name of the color, is Henna. It's a Prismacolor Premier pencil. Bountiful Baby sells these, but they don't sell this color. I got this one from a place called Jerry's Artorama. Their pencils are much, much cheaper there. They're like half the price of Bountiful Babies. And so you can afford to get colors so you can see what you like, you know. And also, if you get as many as 12 pencils, and they don't have to be the same color, they can be 12 completely different colors. They're only $1.29 a pencil, and that's certainly worth it. That's less than half price of what Bountiful Baby charges for one pencil. Their pencils, I think, are $2.89 or $2.69 or something like that at Bountiful Baby. $1.29 if you get 12. And it's real easy to get 12 because I use them, well, if you pencil hair, you're going to use pencils. You'll need about 4 colors of those. And if you pencil very much hair, you're going to need multiples of those pencils because they go pretty fast. If you do eyebrows with pencils, then you'll need pencils for that. If you want to do capillaries, veining, whatever you want to do with pencils, you can certainly get 12. I got several of each color because I use a lot of pencils. This pencil is almost sharp enough to do our creases, but it's not quite. I'm going to make it just a little sharper because it needs to fit down into these little grooves where the creases are really well without leaving marks on the sides of the creases, which would be on the skin of the doll. That looks funky if it's outside the crease area. Now, you can get an expensive pencil sharpener just for sharpening Premier pencils, but this one works better. I have that other pencil sharpener somewhere if I didn't throw it away. It's crap. It peels off all your pencil and you have just lots and lots of shavings in your pencil case and your pencil holder here thing, and you don't have a point on your pencil. So I think it's designed to get you to buy more pencils, really. But I use this cheap one I got from Walmart. I think it was 69 cents. It's called Pen and Gear. It's one that, like, little kids put in their pencil box at school. It has a fat one and a skinny one, because little kids use those fat pencils, remember? They have to be able to sharpen theirs too. So that's what this hole's for. And this one's for regular size pencils. But I have found that if you've already got a point like this, you can get a sharper point quicker by using the big one. You just kind of center it in there and just twist it a little bit, and it just hones the point a little bit sharper, and hardly any of the pencil comes off. So you're going to have a much, much longer lasting pencil by doing it this way. Otherwise, you're peeling off way, way too much pencil. Now, we don't want to get it super, super just razor sharp, because then you make too skinny of a line, if that even makes sense to you at all, that it could be too skinny, because it can, and it looks fake like a pencil. But we're going to be doing something with Q-tips to rub it and smear it a little bit so it doesn't look so fake. Now, you don't want your pencil, that's a little wrong, because as I was sharpening, a tiny bit of the tip broke off, and now it's a little bit flat there. So I need to sharpen it just a teeny bit more. That little jagged edge is going to make a fat line. Now, the darkness of your pencil and how fat your line is mostly determined by how hard you press down. And I suggest a light touch. Get you a couple of these pointy Q-tips. The round kind just doesn't fit down in the crevices good enough. If you don't have any pointy Q-tips, you can use a brush, but it doesn't do as well as a Q-tip does. If you have a nice, clean, flat brush like this, you can brush your creases, and it will smear it a little, but Q-tips work better. Anyway, I'm going to start on the hand, and I'm going to try to divide these fingers. See how the fingers they have a little crevice there, but they still just look like they're stuck together. What we want to do is make them look like that. See the division between my fingers? You can see a line. And that's what we want. We want to see something there that makes it look like the fingers are not stuck together. They're just touching each other. So I'm going to start with one finger, and I'm going to crease it, and then I'm going to show it to you. Now, remember, you're going to control the darkness of your pencil by how hard you press down. And this has not been brushed or anything. It's just been put on there. But you can already see right here in this line, there's a little bit of a reddish brown sort of skin tone color there. And it makes it look a little more like two fingers are just touching than it does here, where it looks like they're just stuck together because they're molded together. Now, I'm going to take my pointy little Q-tip, and I'm going to rub this line a little bit to smear it just a little, because we don't want it to look like a sharp pencil line. We want it to more look like, I don't know, some red on their finger from blush or something. A tiny bit will come off on your swab, but then it looks a little more feathered, a little more natural, a little less fake. And so we're just going to do that in between all the fingers, and we're going to do it to some other creases on the fingers, and I'll explain as I go what I'm doing. I'm just now dividing the fingers just like I did the first finger. And you want to go the entire length of the finger, the crease. However far the crease goes, you want to go that far. And we're going to just rub those a little bit. We just rub them a little. We don't rub them to the point where they're going to erase. You could actually rub it off, but we're not going to do that. Okay, so now that we've done in between the fingers, we also have to do where this thumb is touching the finger, because that looks the same. It looks like it's just molded on there, and we don't want that look. We want to go around this finger to the other side. You might have to turn your hand in a bunch of different weird configurations to get all this done. And we want to do around the whole thumb, the whole thing. Now, you can tell I did around the thumb, all around well, here it is right here. all around the thumb is now outlined. And I'm going to rub that a little bit. You just rub them a little bit. You don't have to rub them a lot. Now, you decide how dark you want it, how thick you want it, and what you actually want to crease and what you don't. You don't have to crease every little line. You don't have to crease any. But I think it looks better creased. Now, I like to crease these little lines on the finger. You can barely see them, but they're the same lines that you have on your finger that make up your knuckles. And they look a little more real and a little more interesting if they're creased. So I just go through here and I just lightly put a little line across every one of those little lines in her fingers. Well, it's going to be his fingers. This is Lalani's hand, but it's going to be Gabriel's now. I'm going to do all the fingers first, and then I'll show you what it looks like. It's very hard to see these little creases. That's why we do them first, because later on, you probably won't even see them. They will be obscured by paint. And most of the time, they stay pretty good. They might not be as dark as they are right now, but they will stay and be subtle little lines that you can see on the hand. Make them look a little more interesting. Now, these lines are very dark. They're much darker than I anticipated them being. And I'm going to rub them to get them a little bit lighter. We don't want them that dark. I don't anyway. Now, if you want them that dark, that's perfectly fine. This is your craft, and you do it the way you want it. Everybody has their own preferences. Now it looks like that. I don't know if you can see them. A lot of enhancements do not show on camera. So, and it seems like, to me, the closer I get to the camera, the more blurry it gets. I'm going to do the thumb the same way. And then I'm just going to go around her hand. See, a little bit of pencil is coming off on the Q-tip. That means you're rubbing it. I'm just going to go around her hand and find little marks that I want to enhance, and I'm going to enhance them. Now, if you think they're too superficial or there's too many of them to do, you don't have to do them all. You don't even have to do any of them. I like to do the biggest, major, most ones. Every single little crease, especially if your doll is super creased, might be a little much. You just have to decide for yourself what you want in your doll. And it's not really the more the merrier when it comes to creases. Sometimes it's too much. But you'll know when you're doing it, you'll be going, this is a lot of creases. I just don't want to do them all. And then you don't have to do them. But see, I did right here by the finger, where the finger's all curled up to make it look a little more real. And I'm going to rub these now with the pencil. Well, I mean with the swab. It just softens them. We don't want to make them go away, because once paint is over them, they're already going to look a little bit minimized just by paint being over them. So we want them to actually show. We want the hand to look like it's been creased, but we don't want it to look real fake and real funny. Now, on these on the arms, once again, you decide if you're going to do one or not. If it's really superficial, there's a good chance it's just going to be washed away by paint. But here's the good news. You can always go over them again if you really want them bad. If they wash away and you really think, that just has to be creased, I just want that creased, you just refresh them every now and then as you're painting, and they stay. And I just take a very light touch. I barely scrape the pencil across there. Now, you can certainly go a lot darker than I'm going, or you can even go lighter. You can very superficially do it. And then, of course, it's not going to show as well. So you have to decide what it is you want from your creases. Do you want them to show prominently? And these up here are not going to ever show, because the arm is going to be against the body like this, and you'll never be able to see it. I don't care what position you put the hand in. I just don't do them because they're just too way up there. But anyway, that's one arm done. It's all done. Well, I didn't do her elbow. This little stuff on the elbow can make the elbow look a little bit more realistic too. You just go across them and just do them to whatever extent you want to do them. This takes a little bit of time, but it's not super time consuming. It's not. And it makes the elbow look a little more realistic. And when you get paint on it, it really does look a lot more realistic. Now we're going to do this hand. Open hands are a totally different ball game to me because you have to do the inside of the hand too. See, this one was closed and there's just only a tiny, tiny little bit down here of the hand. But this one is open. So once again, we're going to crease. Her fingers are not touching except for the thumb. The thumb is touching. So we don't have to do anything in between the fingers this time. We're just going to do around the thumb. And these are the hardest creases to do on a doll, is on the hands, because it's just such a delicate little part of their body. And if you overdo them, they're just going to be funny looking. And if you underdo them, they just look, I don't know, funny looking. But these are definitely overdone. Look at that. That's just dark, dark, and it's overdone. So we're just going to rub it to make it look a little bit better. And yes, the cotton's going to rub off your swab, so you're going to have to get another one. The swabs are very, very cheap. You can afford to use several. That looks good. Much better after you rub it. Anyway, we're going to do this side of the thumb as well because we want it to look normal on both sides. And I'm going to do the little dashes on the thumb that make up the little knuckles. Now on the fingers on this doll, since her hand is open, we're just going to do the little dashes on the fingers. It's just a couple at the top and a couple in the middle. And it's very quick and easy to do. You just make sure your pencil is in the groove when you're making the mark. And if they're too dark, you just rub them and they become lighter. And they can be as light or as dark as you want. I like them light, so I do a little bit of rubbing on them. I just can't get them right just by marking the pencil on there, so I have to rub them. And you can actually rub them all the way off if you rub enough or hard enough. Now these little other marks on the back of the hand, once again, you're going to decide if you're going to do them or not. I just think they look cute done. I don't know, I just like it. And after we start putting paint on them, they're going to look a little less fake. I know you're probably thinking, yeah, those look fake. They look like pencil lines to me. But they're not going to look so much like a pencil line when we start putting paint over them. They're going to look a lot more realistic. They're going to mute a little bit. And they're going to be faded into the background. They are considered an undertone, in my opinion. Undertones you do first because they need to be under the paint. That's what makes them an undertone. There's going to be a lot of lines on your doll that you're going to choose not to do because they're so superficial. But you can do them still. You just may not get them at the end. They're just very, very hardly a line on the doll at all. And when you do them, they show up, but then later they're just gone. And if you really want them bad, you'll have to refresh them. But I usually just go with whatever shows up, unless, like, say, one finger didn't show up and the rest of them did. That would look odd, so I'd go back and do that one finger. But on these other creases, if they don't show up, they just don't show up, you know. Now, I didn't do the inside of the hand yet. I did the hand, but I didn't do the fingers. On the fingers, I like to do these little different bends in the finger. They give the finger a little bit more realism than they'd have if you don't do them. And it's just cute. She's got a little bit of buildup that I didn't see when I was sealing her down in the crack of one of her fingers. So I'm hoping that's not going to present a problem later. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But we'll deal with it if it does. Okay, that's pretty much got her hand done. It looks good to me. That's both her arms. Now we're going to do her legs. Now, the feet are a country of their own. There's so many little creases on the feet. I like to do the bottoms of the toes as much as I possibly can. Now, it is kind of hard to get down to the bottom of the toes sometimes. So some of it is not going to show because it's just too much it's too tight of a crevice, if you know what I mean. So I just trace as many of these little lines on the bottom of the foot that I think are going to look good. And that's pretty much all of them. I do almost all of them. Because I like creased feet. They just look so, so cute. Now this is going to look really funny to you when I show it to you because it's just a bunch of ziggy-zaggy lines all over the feet. And you can't really tell anything about how it's going to look later until it's painted over, it's rubbed a little bit to soften it. It just looks like scribbling, literally. But I'm going to now soften it a little bit with and it does really smear it some to the point where it doesn't look so fake. And then when you start putting paint over it, the layers of paint, it starts to get even a little more softened. See how much better that looks after I rubbed it? And it's just going to highlight the bottom of the foot so well that you can see all those cute little wrinkles that the baby has on their feet. Now I'm doing the sides of the feet, and once again, you do not have to do all of these creases. It is a lot of them, and if you don't want to do them, just don't. I mean, it's just that simple. They are just a bunch. There are just a huge amount of them. Okay, now I'm going to do the toes, and it's going to be similar to what we did on the fingers. I'm just going to put a little divider between the toes to give them a little bit of definition, the ones that are touching, that is. And then I'm going to put the little lines on the toes to make them show up a little better. Sometimes these lines are really straight, and sometimes they're really crooked. I just make sure to keep my pencil down in the little crevice, and that way you follow the actual curvature of the little lines. If they are going sideways, up and down, whatever they're doing. And they look like that, kind of, which I don't know if you can even see that. And I'm going to smear them now with the... Just a little smearing is really all it takes. And now I'm going to do the back of the ankle back here, back of the heel. There's a lot of lines back there. There are a lot of lines on a baby. And if you want to do them all, you're going to be doing it for a little while. I like to do the majority of them. I don't do every single one, but I do a lot of them because they just look so good when the baby's finished. Now, these on the leg, once again, some of them may not stay. One of the worst ones is right in the back of the knee back here. That one is one of the worst for coming out. And if you just really want it bad, you may have to do it a couple of different times. I just let them come out if they come out. I don't care. That's the foot done. Now we have this one to go. We're going to do the same pretty much thing that we did to the other one. Well, the same thing, actually. You want to pay attention to the knees and the elbows. If they have creases on them, they look super cute done. And you can just do them or not do them, whatever you want to do, and it's no big deal. Oh, I hate it when I get messages, but I can't stand not seeing what it is. I think it might be important. They have to remind you that you're watching an item on eBay over and over and over again. I saw a couple of doll kits I liked, but I just don't have the money for them right now. And rather than have to search them out again, I put a watch on them. It's like favoriting them or liking them or something. And then later, they're on a list, and later you can just bring them up easily. And so I do that because I'm interested in getting that, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to or not because, you know, when you're reborning dolls and they're not really selling right now, you're not making much money at all, and but you're putting out expenses to get more kits and stuff. And I'm trying really hard to bump up my inventory for the Christmas rush, and so I'm always looking for bargains on kits, but I just don't have the money right now to get any kits. I need to be getting things to finish the kits I already have. I'm almost out of glass, I'm almost out of polyfill. All this stuff costs money, and I need to be putting dolls together that I've already made instead of buying more dolls. So, long story short, I can't buy it right now. And so I'm just watching it. And if it sells, well, it just sells. I can't help it. That's them's the breaks, as people say. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, my mother used to say. It's just something you can't help. Anyway, when we get finished, I usually start with the face. I don't usually start with creasing. I don't know why I started this time with creasing. I guess I was just excited about making this doll, and I wasn't paying that much attention to what I was doing first. But the reason I always start with the face is there's portions of the face you want to do, and then you want to give it a moment to dry a little before you do the next portion. And then I move to doing creases, and then I go back to the face and finish it up. But this time, I guess I'll have to use my heat gun and dry it with the heat gun, which is something you can consider having. A heat gun can come in very handy because baking a doll before you do the next step is very important sometimes, but you don't have the time or something, and you want to skip a little bit of that process. You can heat it up with a heat gun. Now, it won't cure it by any means, but it will get it dry enough that you can move on to the next step. So that's what a heat gun is good for. I watched a very experienced master artist do some work on her doll, and she was using a heat gun, and she said just go to eBay and find the cheapest one you can find. It doesn't even matter if it's used. Just any cheap one will do the same job that an expensive one will do. So I took her advice, and I went to eBay and I got me a heat gun, and it was $10, I think. I'm not sure for sure, but it wasn't much. And if you look around, you can even find one that doesn't charge any shipping. I mean, they're just all over, and they're almost all exactly the same. They look like this. This has no temperature control. It just has on and off. It gets very, very hot, and you just heat your doll up with it, and it dries the paint really, really quick. Okay, I think he's all creased now. So now we're going to start on the face. Usually what I do on the face, now, he's a little crooked. That's okay. He'll straighten out when he heats. Sometimes they get a little crooked from being heated, and when you stuff their head like I've got him now, and then you reheat them, they usually straighten out, which is okay. And if he doesn't, he'll straighten out when I stuff him to make him into a doll. Okay, the first thing I usually like to do is the blue. I like to put blue on their forehead a little bit. Now, the idea of blue is blue represents blood under your skin. And you can look at your veins in your arms, and you can see in your hands, and you can see the blue. And so anywhere on a baby where they might have thinner skin than other places, you can see a little bit of blue. That's a newborn baby. And Frankie, I'm calling him Frankie. Gabriel represents a newborn baby. He's 20 inches. Anything 18 to 20 inches is considered a newborn. And he's maybe a larger newborn, but he's still a newborn. Anyway, so we're going to put a little blue across his forehead, and then it's just going to be a very little bit. I'm using a technique I call dry brushing because my brush does not have any paint in it. You see, I can do it all over my hand and not get any paint on me. What I did was I dipped it earlier, and I put it in the jar over there to dry. And it is indeed very, very dry. I'm not getting much paint on him at all. but I'm gonna get a smaller brush that might have a little more paint in it. The thing is sometimes you let them dry a little too much, and then you don't get much paint. So blue on the forehead represents thin skin on a baby, and you can probably see that. You're not supposed to be able to see it on camera. They say if you can see it on camera, it is too dark. But don't worry, we're going to kabuki it. The idea here is not to see it boldly. It is an undertone. It gives you the feeling. Layers give your doll depth. You don't always see every layer, but they're there and they do add something. You don't think they do? Make a bare bones baby that doesn't have any undertones and you'll see the difference. It adds some sort of little bit of depth to your doll that you don't normally get if you don't put any on there. And it just makes them better. I don't know how to explain it any other way. Another place where a lot of people put blue is in the corners of their eyes. Now you can do this or not do this. It's totally any of the steps that I do. Totally optional. But just in the little corners, right in the corners. Can you see it? And I'm just going to use this Q-tip and just dab that a little bit. You don't have to worry about any of that pencil coming off. It's not going to. And since we have the blue paintbrush out, we're going to put some blue inside of his nose. We have to build the color in his nose, and it's built by a multitude of colors. Almost every single color that we put on this doll is going to go in his nose. I don't drill out the noses. Some people drill them out and then take black felt and put behind them inside the head, and I just think that's a mistake. Okay, so that is his blue. That's the extent of the blue I'm putting on his face. Now, we are going to put some blue on his feet, but we are not going to touch these feet until they have baked, because the creases are so delicate. They need to be baked first. Baking helps to make them permanent. And okay, so the next thing we're going to do to Gabriel is we're going to add a little bit of purple. He has a very expressive looking face to me. And what that means to me is you can see some of his expression in his face. If you look right up here above his eyebrow line, you can see these little indentations like he's almost frowning. And you can see in his face, there's a few little areas. They're just slightly dimpled in. They're just like a slight little expression. I don't know how to put it any other way. And by putting a little bit of purple in there, it's going to create a little bit of a shadowy effect in that area and sort of highlight that he does have an expression on his face. So I'm just going to get this purple brush that has been dipped in purple. Once again, this is a dry brush. You're not going to see me open any paint here unless I can't get the job done with a dry brush. Now this is very dark, so I'm just putting a little on him, and it is very dark. So we're going to take our sponge, and I'm just going to get one out, and we're going to dab this a good bit because we don't want it that dark. That is just severely dark. All we're looking for is a little bit of a shadowy effect. We're not looking for purple eyebrows. And by dabbing it, see, a lot of it's going to just feather out and come off. And the rest of it is going to be the right amount. And what you're going to see is going to be depth now. You're going to see the depth of his expression on his face a little bit. And once other layers of paint are covering that up, it's going to look even better. So I'm going to put a tiny little bit across the bridge of his nose. A lot of people use blue for this, but I just think it's the wrong color. We want to express his nose, put a little bit of expression in his nose. Okay? And then I'm going to just pick these little areas on his face where it just looks like he would have a little bit of a different color. And I'm just going to dab a little bit on in those little places. And you're going to start to see his face is going to start to look like it has, I I don't know, shadows maybe. I put it around the edges of his nose right there to give his nose a little bit of depth and character. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is, oh yeah, I'm gonna put a little on his chin down here, on these little creases on his chin. He's just got the cutest little face. There we go. Now that's about it on purple. I'm not a big purple person. Now we're going to move to the red. That's the one we use the most of on a doll, and we're going to start to give him a little color from red. I'm going to just take out some brushes. I have lots of red brushes because that's the color I use the most of, and it's the one that, you know, babies are pretty much red. They're not purple or blue. They're red. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is color his nose a little bit. We want his nose to be slightly darker than the other parts of his face will be. And by putting a little on his nose right now, we can do that. We can make it. This is very, very wet indeed. I probably used this brush earlier today and didn't let it dry enough because it's going on very, very dark. But that's okay because we're going to dab it. We're probably going to dab most of it off because it's so dark. And now you can see that his nose looks a little pink. So now we're going to do his ears the same way. We just want a slight little difference of color there so that when we start putting other colors on him, it just looks a little darker, that's all. A little redder and a little darker. And we want to be careful to get the entire inside of his ears colored. We don't want any parts to show up as white later on because we didn't cover them good. So we have to turn his head a bunch of different ways to make sure we're getting the whole inside of his ear done. And it does look very dark, but it's not going to look that dark. Now, to get the backs of the ears, you just have to let the tips of the bristles brush up and down on his ears, on the back of his ear a bunch of times until it gets the color of the front of his ear about. And it could get a little bit of it on his head. Not to worry, we can rub it off. If it's only a tiny, I always just leave it because he's going to be pretty red anyway. But if a lot gets on there, I rub it off because you don't really want dark, dark red behind his ears. I mean, on the backs of his ears. Yes, you want his ears to be the same color on the front and the back. But you don't want it on his head behind his ears. Now, we're going to dab this as well because we don't really want it that dark. And we just want it kind of a pinkish color. And there will be some little crevices in his ear that will be slightly darker than the rest of his ear, and that's okay. We just don't want it to be hugely darker. So you can dab it with a toothpick, a brush, a Q-tip, pretty much anything just to get down in those little crevices and not leave it dirty looking. We want it to be pinkish like that. Don't put pink on your doll. The difference is Barbie. Think of Barbie. We use red, and it's really, really a deep, deep, bloody red. This is the color. And it just comes out pinkish because we're not putting it on that dark. We are just blushing him up with it. And even though we want it sort of pinkish, if you actually put pink on your doll, yeah, you better name it Barbie. It's going to be a color you do not like. Pink does not belong on your doll anywhere. Okay, let's do the back of the ears. This is the most time-consuming part of your doll, is the undertones. It's going to take 2 steps with a bake in the middle to get him the way we want him to look. but it's worth the time. I got it all over his head, and right now I'm going to rub it off. If you rub with your brush, it's going to take off, your sponge, it's going to take off probably some off his ears too, but we have to get that off his head. So we're going to be a little more careful this time around the ears. There we go. We just have to be very, very careful how we let the brush touch the doll's head, because we don't really want to paint behind his ears. We only want to paint his ears. And once again, we want to get the whole ear. We don't want to leave any parts starkly white. It just looks funky later. Now we're going to dab that a good bit and get it kind of pinky colored too, like his other ear. And they may not be exactly the same, and that's okay, but they need to be close. Yeah, they are close, actually. I just want to compare them and see that they're closely the same color, close. Now, if you still have some on the head like I do, you can just rub it a little bit more. But be careful, if you rub it off the back of the ears, you're going to have to redo the back of the ears. Okay, that's good. Now, his mouth is open, which creates its own little problem because we have to color inside there. So we're just going to, I'm not going to use this brush because I've fanned out the bristles so much I can't get it in there. We're going to just color inside his mouth a little bit. This is in no way going to be the color of his mouth. This is just a little boost to get him going. We have to turn him upside down at times to be able to get the whole inside of his mouth painted. And we are trying to keep it off his face. Even though we're going to put some on his face, we want different shades of, different levels, I guess you'd call it, of blushing on different parts of the doll. Because, well, they're colored different. Now, even though we're going to put some all over his face, I'm going to wipe this off of above his lip right there. Now, as you can see, his mouth is only very, very, very palely colored. So that's not going to be the color of his lips later. It's just what he has right now. So anyway, we're going to move on to another brush. That one is just too watery looking. We're going to try this one, and we're going to put some blush on his actual face now. But before we get really into his face, I got to clean up his nose a little. That's one thing. It's just a little stark right there. As soon as you see a problem on your doll, try to eliminate that problem. At the very least, you can minimize it to something that isn't as bad as it was. Right in that little crevice of his nose was just a little too dark. Okay, now we're going to try to put some blush sort of all over his face, very, very lightly. We don't want any part of his face to just be white, because it's going to look super strange if it is. So we're going to just kind of just dab around some red all over his face, kind of like I'm doing right now. He looks like he has raccoon eyes right now, but he won't look like that. And as a matter of fact, we're going to dab that. See, it's much, much lighter now. Now, when we get his whole face blushed, you'll barely see that on his eyes. You'll be going, did we do something to his eyes? I can't really tell. Because we're going to blush him up real, real good. We're going to try to make him look kind of like a little newborn baby would look. A little bit pinky all over. A little bit red, so to speak. Now, he might not be evenly red everywhere. That is okay. He doesn't need to be. What we need is to make sure what we do put on him looks good. It needs to be smoothed out and not just a big round circle. I don't know, none of y'all are probably as old as me. I'm 68 years old. But back in my day, ladies didn't wear blush. They wore rouge. And rouge was a very red, creamy something about the consistency of some of the lip glosses they have. And ladies would smear it on their cheeks, but they wouldn't rub it in. They just have these round circles on their cheeks, especially the older ladies. They just have these super round red circles on their face. And that's how they put their blush on. It was called rouge. And if you're not old enough, ask your mother or your grandmother. She can tell you about rouge. Okay, that is in no way dark enough. You're probably going, oh my goodness, how red do you want it? Well, it's going to get lighter when you bake it. Everything gets lighter. But we're going to give his face just a moment. Well, I didn't put any above his, let me try this. We're going to put some up here on his forehead as well. Now that's getting closer to the right color. I should have used this brush all along. Look how dark that is. We're not trying to make him super, super overall blushed as much as we're trying to give him just some color and depth to his skin tone. And babies are not always evenly blushed. And a lot of people call this a stork bite. I just call it uneven blush, but you know, it is what it is. You can call it anything you want to. I'm gonna put a little more on his lips because they're just pale. And this is in no way the color his lips are gonna be. They're gonna be much more prominently colored. But just a little on there helps to bump up that color a little bit. So we're gonna just blush him up a little more because he's not there yet. I'm just going to get him a little more blushy on his cheeks and stuff. And when he comes out of the oven, that's when we're really going to decide, does he need more blush or not? And we just can't decide right now because, like I said, it's going to get lighter. So when he comes out, you might go, I think I blushed him, but why doesn't he look more blushed? But, or you might go, that looks just about right. I think his nose is a little bit light. I'm going to put a little more on that. I like a little blushy nose. And he is getting there. He's getting to where he needs to be. He's not quite there yet. We don't want to do anything to him that's going to cause him to look harsh or funny looking. And you might think, okay, you're already there. He's funny looking. But like I said, it's going to get lighter. Every bit of it, to the point where it almost looks like it's gone. That is barely dark enough, barely. And that's if you want a pale baby. You can even kabuki it a bit if you don't like the harshness of it. You can twirl that's the blue kabuki. You don't want to use that one. Where's my red kabuki? Here we go. I have a kabuki for each color. You swirl it around a little bit, it'll move it around a little more. Don't swirl too much or rub too much. You'll rub it right off. And you don't want to do that because you just did a lot of work to get it on there. We just want to soften the edges a little bit. We don't want him looking like he, super red, nothing. We don't want that. Okay, that's about got his head. That's about all we can do until he bakes. But one thing we can do is his lips and nails. I know I put some color on his lips already, but that's nowhere close, like I said, to the color we want them to be. We can't do any more to his arms and legs except his nails until he bakes because we don't want to ruin our creases. So we're going to now put on some color on his lips, and then we'll put some color on his nails, and then we'll put him in for his first bake. Well, he's already had 2 bakes, but that was just for sealer. When you put sealer on, you have to bake 2 times, and it goes on kind of like paint. And with a sponge, and now this is a wet color I'm using. I made this using thinning medium. It says thinning medium right on it, right there. I just took enough out that I could put my paint in there and still mix it up without it splashing over the sides, And I've been using it for a long, long time. It lasts forever. Now, when you're doing the lips, you can notice that his lips has little lines in it, just like your lips do. And if you was to put lipstick on, or I don't guess people use lipstick and sticks anymore, but they used to. If you just put it on real thick, it just gets in those creases and makes it look like you have a bunch of red lines in your lips, and it looks funky. So we're going to be smoothing this out. We're going to put a tiny, tiny, thin coating on his lips. I mean, the thinnest you can get it just about, and it have any color at all. Because what we're after here is not the final color. It is just a beginning. Many thin layers make better looking lips than one thick layer. And when I say many, I mean 3 or 4, maybe 5 layers. I don't know. It won't be like 100 or nothing. Just every layer you put on your doll, you refresh their lips and nails until you like the color. And when it gets to the color that you like, we are finished. But what we want to do is stay inside the lip line. There is a clear defined lip line when they're first a brand new blank doll. You can see it very well most of the time. There are a few dolls that you cannot see their lip line hardly at all, no matter what. But they're few and far between. Most of the time you can see it. And if you stay in the lip line, every time you put a coat on there, it will get a little darker and a little darker, and each previous coat builds the second coat, the next coat behind it. Paint sticks to paint. Keep that in mind as you're making your doll. It's not about getting the color right on the first few coats. It's about getting paint on your doll so paint can stick to paint. And you'll make a beautiful lips, a beautiful lip line, and you'll make beautiful lips on your doll if you do it very carefully and methodically at the beginning. We want to be super careful, staying within the lip line and making sure we get all of the lip colored. We don't want to leave any blank. So we're going to look at it from lots of angles, and we're going to make sure that we get the whole inside of the mouth painted, the tongue, the roof of the mouth, all of it, because we want it all to look good. And Gabriel's a very cute little baby, I think. He makes a wonderful little doll. And I love him. And he's going in my collection. Not that I do a better job for my collection than I would for somebody else's, but you definitely want a doll you're going to keep and look at the rest of your life probably, or until you get tired of collecting dolls, to be very, very pretty. If you make a mistake on a doll you're selling, well, it's going to go, even if you have to sell it for a bargain, baby. It's going to leave your house one day, and you don't have to look at it anymore. But this doll is going to stay, and I just want him to look very, very good, if that makes any sense at all. Like I said, I wouldn't try harder on a doll I'm keeping. I just, I'm just saying that it's your one shot. And if he turns out to be a bomb, well, I guess I'll get another kit, because I do want a Gabriel in my collection. I like him, but I don't like his limbs. That's why I changed him. He makes a very cute little baby. He can make a girl or a boy. Some of the dolls, to me, they say it's all about the clothes, but to me, this is just my personal belief. Some of them look a little too boyish to be a girl, and some of them look a little too girly to be a boy, to me. But that might be because I know their name and I know they're supposed to be a boy or a girl. But Gabriel is one of the few dolls that makes a nice looking boy or girl. He looks a little bit like, there's another doll that looks sort of like him. Ginger, I think. Except Ginger has a real goofy look on her face. Anyway, I'm going to paint his nails the same way. Once again, we don't want a thick coat. We only want a very thin little coat, and we want to stay within the little nail area. Very, very, very methodically and careful paint the nails, because this is your first coat. It's going to be the base for all future coats that you're going to put on these nails. And so we want this one to be as perfect as we can get it. Sometimes, and this is one of those times, the nails just look like a tiny little slit. They are so tiny and difficult to paint. Don't worry if you can barely see the paint. That's not what it's about. It's about getting some paint in that area. And after the bake, it might even not show up at all. And that is okay. I theorize in my mind and I've never tried this and I don't want to, that you could actually paint the first coat with thinning medium and it would work almost the same. I don't know if this is really true because I don't believe some of the stuff Bountiful Baby says. They say that thinning medium is just paint with no color, but it's much thinner than paint. So I don't know, maybe it is. If it really truly is just paint with no color, then painting a layer of thinning medium onto the nails should work just as good as this first coat. But why would anybody want to do that when you can actually be putting color on there? I don't know. The color helps guide you the second layer. You don't have to look so hard for the nail where the outline of the nails is because you've got color there, and you were very careful on your first coat to make sure you didn't get any outside the nail area and you didn't miss any of the nail area. So that makes it much easier to paint the second time around. So that means it's really important to get some color there. It doesn't matter if it's dark though. It can be super, super light. Thin is the way to go because thicker paint, this is a thicker paint anyway. It's not watered down, and when I say water, I mean paint thinner. It's not diluted with any paint thinner at all. It only has thinning medium in it. And thinning medium is a thicker medium. And it tends to run down to the nail base. And it looks thick and gooey down there. So we don't want that to happen, so we're putting it on very, very, very thin for that reason. And each coat after this will stick to the coat before. But see, there's no paint on this doll right now. So there's the only thing it has to cling to is the sealer. And it does cling a bit to the sealer, but the best way is just thin coats. And after you've put, I'd say 2 to 3 coats on, you can put a thicker coat on. When we come back from this particular part of the video, after he's had a bake, we'll come back and do the second part of his enhancements or undertones, whichever one you want to call it. I have got to the habit of calling them enhancements, but most everybody calls them undertones. But when we do the second coat, we'll put another coat on his nails and his lips. And that one will stick even a little bit better. And then when we put his first layers on, then we can start to get a little bit thicker with our paint, a little bit. And every subsequent coat after that, be mindful how you lay your doll down after you've painted their nails. You don't want their nails to touch the table. It will wipe them off. Each subsequent coat after that can be a little bit darker and a little bit darker. Oh, I love it when one finger's covered up and you don't have to paint the nail. When they have their fists balled up like this, a lot of times one of their nails will be underneath the other fingers. You can't see it. And so then you don't have to paint it or tip it later when you're tipping the nails. It is hot in here. It's just to that temperature outside where the air barely ever comes on. And, you know, all summer long, the air's just blasting, it seems like, because it's so hot in Tennessee. But you get used to that feeling of cold air coming out of the vents and sort of blowing on you because, well, I'm sitting close to a vent. And then when it's cooler out and the air's not coming on as much, well, you don't get that blast of air blowing on you. Some of these nails are so bent, they're just so hard to paint. We just take our time and do the best we can on them because we want them to look good. There's no points for going fast here. That one just looks a bit rough. I don't know. They tend to get smoother every coat you put on too. They'll look a little bit rough when it comes out because you just really can't, even no matter how hard you try, you can't make them super, super smooth. They used to have some stuff called glazing gel, and I used to use that for the nails instead of thinning medium, and then they quit having it. I don't know if they've brought it back or not. I haven't looked for any, but at one time they didn't have any at all. And I said, what's up with no glazing gel? And she said, oh, you can use paint thinner for thinning medium for the same thing. If you get any on the fingers, just wipe it off. At this point, it wipes right off. Um, so I started using thinning medium instead of glazing gel. So I never went back and looked for any glazing gel. But glazing gel was a little more translucent than this thinning medium. Slightly, just slightly. Okay, that's got his lips, his nails, his creases, his blush, his bluing, his purple. I think we're ready for a bake. Now, when we come back, we'll do part 2. And what we'll do in part 2... Oh, and what was that? Okay. What we'll do in part 2 is we will put some more blush on his face. We'll color his fingers and the bottoms of his feet and things like that. We'll do more enhancements on the hands and the feet because we can't do them right now because he hasn't baked yet. But we will do them in part 2, and then we'll do another layer on his lips and his nails, and then he'll get another bake. But right now he's going in the oven. So I want to remind everybody, please like, subscribe, and share, and drop a comment if you want to. Don't feel shy. And happy reborning.